Hello, everyone, and welcome to the City of Asbury Park Green Expo speaker event. My name is Irina Gasparian, and I work with the Department of Planning and Redevelopment for the City of Asbury Park. And I'd like to introduce our hosts for this evening, Sarah Snyder, Sustainability Intern for the City of Asbury Park, and Derek Minnow Bloom, he is our Green Team member and local food and racial justice activist. We have a lot of great speakers and educators this evening who are going to share with us how we can live a more green life and how we can make a positive impact on our environment. So without further ado, Sarah, would you please introduce our speakers for this evening?
Sure. So I'll give a quick rundown. We do have a little bit of schedule change. So we're going to be starting off with Matt from Kula Farms, followed by Dr. Alan Robock from Rutgers University. Then we're going to go to Ty from Seabright Solar and finish up with Kevin, who is our certified healing food specialist. We will not be joined by Jay this evening or our surf rider chair. They were not able to make it, but we do have some info for you to follow up with them if you are interested in learning more about their organizations. So we will start with Matt. He is the farm manager at Kula Urban Farms, and he's going to be giving us a quick little tour of the hydroponic greenhouse that we have right here in Asbury. Go ahead, Matt.
All right. Thank you for hosting this, first of all. My name is Matt van Oosterhout, one of the managers here at Kula Farm. I'll start with the most asked question that I get after one of my talks, and that's, where are you from? I'm Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands. I've been here for 10 years. I'm not going to lose this accent. I'm going to have to stick with it. I'm just one of the managers here. I manage this farm together with Miss Lisa Bagwell, and she's probably the most environmental aware person that I know. For instance, one thing that she does is she uses trash to create art. She's an artist. She leaves all her little art projects all around the farm, also on display at galleries sometimes. And I think that's just a great way to, be sustainable. I'm going to talk a little bit about the farm in general first, about sustainability, and there should be some time for questions. So we're here in Asbury Park. We're on the west side of Asbury Park, not the best part of town, unfortunately. We are part of a larger nonprofit called Interfaith Neighbors. And they developed the Springwood Center. That's what I'm looking at right now, right across from us. It is a large center, community center, cafe, business development center. And they were looking at this. A abandoned motel, and it was a nuisance to the whole area. And the goal of Interfaith Neighbors is to help people and bring back life to this part of town. They bought the place. One thing Interfaith Neighbors does is they develop affordable housing, but this time they thought, we have to do something else. We have to make sure that the people in this part of town can kind of benefit from the huge economic boom that is happening on the other side of town. All the hotels and restaurants getting developed over there. So they thought, let's start a farm and grow food that we sell to the restaurants, at the same time bring in people from the local community to work on the farm. So that's what we do. We are a social enterprise. We do, get checked every month. Are we selling enough? But it's not our main part. We're here for the community. So we have a job program called the KFE Experience. And that's how we hire people, give them a job, no questions asked, and get them back into the workforce. And it's been working really well. one thing we also do is we turn vacant lots into lush green gardens. So it just happened to be that Interfaith Neighbors already owned a lot across the street on Springwood Avenue. And we thought that's, people was just parking there. There was a little, trash accumulating over there. Let's turn that in a garden. We did. We called it the Farm Without Borders. People can just go there to take what they need, and the farm is managed by the people that come out of our job program. It was a success. We looked at the lot next door, also empty. We found out who owned this and called them, asked them, came up with an agreement, and soon enough we expanded that threefold. And it's now also the location of our community compost. Composting is a good way to help the environment. It shouldn't end up in the trash. So for the people that don't have a space to compost, they can go there. You can go there, drop it off. It is on Atkins Avenue and Springwood, right behind the Turf Club, the old Turf Club that burned down in the 70s, much as many other places over here on Springwood Avenue. Right behind there, you can drop off your compost. And we also have like businesses that do that. We appreciate it because we get to use the compost. And then right next to us, we also noticed an abandoned lot owned by the Bethel AME Church, and they have their food pantry there. So we asked them too, can we farm it? Whatever we grow, we'll donate to the food pantry. And that's exactly what we've been doing. Every Wednesday, we drop off a load of super fresh organic produce. We were doing that already in the beginning. We have a tiny community plot in the front of our greenhouse, and we started growing lettuce and kale and invited people in, and they weren't too excited about it. We had to learn our neighbors first. So a lot of people migrated here from the southern states and also from the Caribbean islands, and now we grow collard greens and okra and papano, which is like cilantro, very much appreciated by the Hispanic community. And we found out that people want their tomatoes green instead of red. So it was definitely interesting. Overall, we donate about 4,000 pounds a year in fresh food. And we don't really keep track of what people pick. So jobs, food. We also try to host a series of educational programs. We do an after-school program called Green Thumbs, and we host workshops here, and they're fun. I think so. It's always very hands-on, and you go home with something. So making fire cider, constructing a hydroponic station, or growing mushrooms, or microgreens, things like that. We also do farm-to-table dinners. And if you're interested in those things, please go to our website. You can see the calendar. You can sign up for our newsletter. Another way is to stay in touch is to follow us on social media. We do Instagram and Facebook. Now more really about what you see behind me, though. Let me change this. So we grow hydroponically in this greenhouse. It means we don't use any soil. And the major benefits are that we can put a lot more plants in this greenhouse, which is kind of a constricted space, because we can grow vertically in these grow towers. We can fit about 5 times as much plants in here than a conventional farm. Also, we recirculate the water that we use to irrigate these towers. So we use up to 90% less water than conventional farms. Which are huge benefits, of course. We also never any weeds growing in here, so we don't have to use herbicides. And there's no leaching of any nutrients, water, or any possible pesticides into the soil because we recircle it. On top of that, starting to rain here a little bit, we capture the rain from the roof to fill our hydroponic system. Inside these towers, there is a media where the roots can kind of anchor into, and that is made out of plastic, but it's made out of a recycled plastic from It's PET plastic. It's the #1 recyclable plastic. It's your typical Pepsi, Coke, Sprite bottle. It's the most easy thing to recycle. I think there might be a talk on recycling later on. I'm pretty excited about that. I feel it's even more sustainable than using glass. Apart from that, we're also, we're local. We're right here. Food doesn't have to travel miles away from Europe or Mexico. It is all grown right here. It is super fresh, more nutritious, and it uses less CO2. It's an automated greenhouse. Right now, the window is closing because it's raining. We have a weather station on top of our greenhouse that will close the windows if it's raining, if it gets too hot, or if the winds pick up too much. Apart from that, we have sensors in the greenhouse that will send a message to my cell phone if there's a leak. Fans come on whenever it gets too hot in here because it's important to have air circulation. More about that later. Then we have a timer on our pump now. The pump is kind of the heart of our operation here. And we used to have that on 24/7. We visited a similar farm and they said, no, we just run it once every hour or so. So we were able to cut our energy bill in half by doing so. Then we also have grow lights, especially in the wintertime, to kind of extend the day. I turned some of them on for you. You should see this place. It's night. It really lights up in this kind of purplish magenta color. The reason is I can turn the light a little bit. So it is actually blue and red light. I have to turn off the white light, sorry. So it's red light and it is blue light. The main reason is that that's what plants use. They only use red and blue light. If you look at the rainbow, you see the whole spectrum of the light. In the center of it is yellow and green. The plants reflect the green light and they don't use the yellow light. So again, we are able to save on our energy bill by providing only what the plants need the most, the red and the blue light. We're in the greenhouse. You've all heard of the greenhouse effect. The main reason is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is actually very important for us here in the greenhouse. That important that we actually monitor it. Let's see if you can see right now. It is 384. That is kind of the ambient level of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Used to be a lot less, by the way. It used to be less than 300 parts per million is that. I'm going to stand close to it and talk to it. We people exhale carbon dioxide and plants take up the carbon dioxide. We take up the oxygen that they produce. I'll show you now. We're at 400 something already. It will keep going up as long as I talk close to it. So in the atmosphere is about 400. It used to be 300. Because of the industrial revolution, our people have added a quarter of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and it's going up steadily. Plants love it. So plants actually would prefer double of it. They like it around 800 and a little bit more. So whenever it is a sunny day, it's over 500 now. Whenever it's a sunny day, there's sunlight. We provide all the nutrients they need. There's water. The next limiting thing basically is the CO2. So we make sure that the windows are open, there's enough fans going, and even on a wintry day, when it's cold outside and we can keep the windows closed, we'll supplement CO2 to make these plants grow faster. What I tried to illustrate over there is, what they say, it's true. If you talk to your plants, they will grow faster for the reason that they will get more carbon dioxide is one there. The kind of cons of having hydroponics is that there is quite some plastic in this greenhouse. We've used these grow towers for 5 years now, and we don't see any signs of degradation. The grow media is recyclable. So we feel okay about this. In general, I think it is a more sustainable operation than conventional farms. Now, I think I talked for about 15 minutes, and there should be some room for questions. I think I saw some come by, but maybe Sarah or Irnia can unmute and bring them up.
All right. Yeah, so you got a couple questions. We'll see if we should be able to answer them all. The first question is, can compost be dropped off anytime by anyone?
Yes, the compost site is on Atkins Avenue, and it's very easy to just pull over your car for a second and drop it off. We ask people not to include compostable plates and cups because they might be biodegradable, but we are not able to compost them in a short amount of time. And then also please no yard waste, because we don't want more weeds. But your coffee grinds and your food scraps basically are welcome from everyone at any time of day, because we don't need to be there.
All right. Let's see. What are the major differences between similar community gardens in the Netherlands and the US or Asbury Park?
Well, even our community garden over here is kind of different. Your standard community garden is where you kind of rent a plot and you take care of your little plot, whereas over here, we do call it the community garden, but we kind of manage it, and then it's free for everyone to take. I'd say in the Netherlands, it's not much different than over here.
All right. We'll keep going. I think you might have covered, do you sell vegetables to restaurants?
Yes, we do sell vegetables to restaurants, and of course, one way to support us would be to eat at one of the restaurants. We have a list over here that I'll show you. So Langosta, Cardinal, Pulp, the Grand Tavern, Stella Marina, Watermark, Medusa, and Pasta Volo are currently buying our produce.
And then can people outside of restaurants, can individuals purchase vegetables from you as well?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thank you very much for that question. Of course, when the coronavirus endemic happened, all the restaurants closed and we weren't able to sell our produce anymore. So quickly we opened a web shop, and now everyone can come. Please go to our website, kulafarm.org. Place your orders. It's highly seasonal what we sell, so you know that what you're buying is in season at the moment and locally grown, organic, officially hydroponics. We may not, it doesn't qualify as organic because it's not grown on manure and compost, but we don't use any pesticides, and it just tastes good. I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they're eating all kinds of vegetables.
All right, I'll keep it moving. What are the top 5 plants that you grow?
That was my timer.
We've got
lettuce,
a couple more, so yeah, we'll wrap it up.
Lettuce, kale, chard, tomatoes, right now basil, and red vein sorrel.
All right. And so this question will follow nicely with our next speaker. I believe from him too. So the actual ambient CO2 is about 410 parts per million. Is it lower in your greenhouse because the plants are taking up the CO2?
Yes. And it will get higher at night when they start their respiration.
Good. And last 2 questions for you. Should people not include animal products in their compost, for example, eggshells and meat scraps?
Yeah, no meat scraps. Eggshells are welcome.
And Matt, I'm sorry, can you also just do a brief overview of what is permitted and what can be composted in the compost bins there?
It is listed on our website. Also, yeah, food scraps, coffee grounds, eggshells are welcome. Yard waste not, and food scraps not, and no compostable paper plates and cups. I might be forgetting something. It is listed on our website. The compost is mostly maintained and managed by my lovely colleague, Miss Lisa Bagwell.
Good. And then last question for you. How many people manage your operation?
So we have two full-time, managers. We switch off, so I do the Wednesdays and the Saturdays, Sundays, and then Lisa does Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Then we have a couple of people that came out of that short-term KFE program and got also part-time jobs over here. There are three of them at the moment. We did slim down a little bit because we don't want too many people at the farm at the same time. Just like anywhere, we want to keep it safe. We really want to make sure that we don't have to stay at home ourselves. Usually we have like 2 or 3 people from the short-term job program. Usually, in normal conditions, we have 2 to 5 people walking around on a day, and now it's more like 1 to 3 people on a day.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. That was really informative, and I hope people go out and compost at your place and check it out. I've done a workshop there myself growing mushrooms, so it's a great place. Everyone check it out, and thank you so much, Matt. We're going to roll right into thanks. All right, we're going to roll right into our next speaker. We have Dr. Alan Robock. He is a distinguished Rutgers professor in the Department of Environmental Sciences and the Associate Director at the Center for Environmental Prediction. And he mainly studies, his research mainly focuses and involves many aspects of climate change. So perfect segue from the CO2 parts per million right into Dr. Robock. And go ahead and start us off.
Okay, thanks very much for inviting me. I want to talk about global warming and what you can do about it. So I've been studying this my whole career, and it's really hard to talk for such a short period of time, but I'll do the best. First of all, global warming in 10 words. It's real, it's us, it's bad, we're sure, there's hope. I'll be happy to answer questions about any of these things. Let me just show what's causing global warming. The main greenhouse gas is carbon dioxide. We just saw the concentration in the greenhouse. I got this a few days ago from the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii, and you can see right now it's about 409 parts per million. And as was just discussed, when in the summer, when plants are growing, they suck the CO2 out of the atmosphere, and that's why it's going down. And plants also respire and give off CO2, and in the winter it goes up. But on top of this, there's this trend. And if you look at the trend since we started measuring in 1958, it's gone up from 315 to more than 400, and there's no sign that the rate of change is going down. If we look at temperature change during the last 120 years, this is a record from all the weather stations around the world put together by NASA. And what you can see is, let's throw out that bad data from World War II. There were a lot of volcanic eruptions at the end of the 19th century, and then they stopped. So part of this warming was because of that. After World War II, there was a lot of industrial development and a lot of pollution in the lower atmosphere, and that blocked out the sun and counteracted the effect of greenhouse gases. But the atmosphere stopped getting any dirtier for the last 30, 40 years, and now this greenhouse gases have dominated. How can we tell this? Well, this is a climate model simulation that was done at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. And anything that's red is warmer than normal, and anything that's blue is colder than normal. And what they did is they put in the observed amount of greenhouse gases up to about the year 2000. And then after that, they put in continual increases in greenhouse gases. And what you can see in certain places, like in New Jersey, some month, this is every month, some months it's colder, some months it's warmer. That's because of the wind direction, because of weather, because of storms that come through. So if it's from the north from Canada, it's colder than normal. If it's from the south, it's warmer than normal. But this weather fluctuation is on top of a gradually increasing global temperature. And so every place in the globe isn't warmer because of global warming, but the average is. And on top of that, it gets warmer and warmer. So you can see as time goes on, if we don't do anything about it, the Earth in this color scheme becomes more and more yellow and red, and you see much less blue. And we use these tools. We use lots of different climate models from around the world and run them for lots of different weather situations, and that's how we figure out what's causing climate change. So this is a graph showing all these climate models in the world were asked to simulate, let's just simulate what happens with natural causes of climate change, that is volcanic eruptions and solar variations, which are very small. What you can see is for the first half of the 20th century, it's pretty good, but for the second half, observations show we got warming, and if it was just being caused by natural things, not by humans, the temperature would not have gone up. Each of these lines is one climate model simulation. And then they said, okay, let's do it again and include the effects of humans. And then it looks like this. There's a very good match between what is observed and what the climate model says. So if we compare this to this, that's why we're sure that you can't explain this warming any other way than because of the greenhouse gases, mainly carbon dioxide, that we're putting into the atmosphere. And if you separate out the different effects, the greenhouse gases by themselves would cause more warming than we've seen, but it's balanced partly by the pollution, which reflects sunlight. And together, this is what we get. So these are the fundamental questions about global warming. How will the climate change in the future? How will it affect us, and what should we do about it? So there'll be considerable warming, glacier retreat, more precipitation, floods, droughts, extinctions, worse air pollution, and sea level rise, and stronger hurricanes. And it will affect us because there'll be some winners, but mostly losers, including impacts on water and agriculture, pests, and national security. So I'm a scientist. I can look at data, look at models, look at experts, and answer these two questions. But what we should do about it is based on your values. And I can't tell you what to do about it. You have to decide yourself. If you think global warming is bad, then you should try and stop it. But I can't tell you that. That's up to you. But if you want to do it, I'll tell you how. And if you want to stop it, we should need mitigation, which is reducing the emissions of greenhouse gases. We leave the fossil fuels in the ground, don't burn coal, oil, and natural gas. We do it now, it's cheaper than waiting. We have to study the impacts. We have to adapt to a certain amount of global warming, and blocking out the sun by artificially creating a cloud in the stratosphere called geoengineering is probably not a good idea. So someday, son, none of this will be yours. Or another way of looking at it, I'm sorry these cartoons are all about men and not about girls, but anyway, someday, son, this will all be yours. Of course, it will all be liquid and you'll be in a zoo somewhere, but still. And finally, one day, son, this will all be yours to solve. So let me talk to you about what we can do if we want to do mitigation. You could use energy more efficiently. So you could have a hybrid automobile or electric automobile, use hybrid trucks and trains, solid state lighting, more efficient furnaces and appliances, or you could just use less energy. Ride your bicycle, use public transportation, use better insulation. When you do use energy, you can use renewable energy. Solar and wind are the two things. There's enough sun and wind on the planet to power everything we want to do. Some of it can come from geothermal or from biomass, that is either recycling biomass or growing crops and then burning them, biofuels. And there's even an idea of taking some of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and sucking it out of the atmosphere. It's called carbon sequestration. We don't know how to do that right now, but that might help a little bit. So we actually need to do all of the above. One of the arguments about not doing this is that, well, one little thing won't make that much difference. That's why all of these things have to be done at once. So here's my house, and in Manasquan, and I have solar panels on the roof, and I have an electric car, a Tesla, and a hybrid, Honda Accord hybrid, and I try not to drive the cars. Of course, that's not been very hard the last 6 months, but and so this is part of the solution. And I want to show you my electric bill. So the green is my electric bill since 2002. It's going up and down every month, and then it started to go down, and then it got to zero, and in fact, it became negative. So can anybody guess when I installed my solar panels? It was about here, but after I installed them, I still had used electricity in the winter when there was no sun, or in the summer when the AC was on, and then I changed my light bulbs, and I turned off the spare refrigerator in the basement, and every year after they sum it up, the electric company pays me for the excess that I generated. On top of that, there are solar renewable energy certificates, which I get. So I get 22 cents a kilowatt hour for generating the electricity, plus I get the electricity. So the purple lines are my annual average electric bill. So it used to be $2,000 a year, and now it's minus $2,000 a year. So I get the I get $2,000 a year from the SREX, and I also get the electricity. So it's a great investment. The state of New Jersey and the federal government will help subsidize it. So what can you do immediately? You can support legislation that will help solve the problem, both in New Jersey and in Congress, and vote for legislators, a governor, and a president who will help solve the problem. Our current governor is very good on this issue, and even his wife even helped put in climate change education into all the grades K through 12. And we've rejoined the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. The president is still a problem, and different congressmen and members, our two senators are pretty good on this issue. As I said, you can install solar cells with subsidies and just use less energy, less driving. If you drive, use a small car, hybrid or electric car, insulate your house, cooler house in winter, warmer in summer, buy local products, as we just saw from the Kula farm, use LED light bulbs, eat less meat, because especially beef emits a lot of methane and uses a lot of energy, recycle, and use biodiesel. And the most important thing, however, is to change your leaders, not your light bulbs. We need some national policy, state policy, national policy to get everybody to do it. Individual actions won't be enough. So finally, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. And I'm happy to answer questions.
All right. So thank you so much. That was amazing. Lots to take in, and I really appreciate that you added in that voting thing with legislature. It's so important. And I think this first question might have to do with that. It's from Derek. It says he thanks you, and it says, I know personal change matters, like shorter showers, riding bikes, personally driving, owning an electric car, but how important is it for us to organize against major corporations and major polluters?
Well, I think I sort of answered that. It's important, and there are how do you influence the fossil fuel industry? They right now in the United States are very powerful, and they will give a lot of money to legislators who get rid of regulations about emissions. And so the most important way to do this, I think, is a gradually increasing carbon tax. Right now, if you have your trash taken away or if you flush your toilet, you've got to pay somebody to deal with that waste. But if you burn gasoline and CO2 goes into the atmosphere, there's no charge. You're using the atmosphere as a sewer for no charge. So if there was a tax put on emissions of CO2 that was pretty substantial right now and then gradually increasing, that would be a huge incentive both to not emit and to produce technology that allows you to live your life and not emit. And then the question, well, I don't want any more taxes. So I think the best idea is a carbon fee that the government doesn't keep any of it. They return it to every citizen, and they get the same amount. Every person gets the same amount. So if you use less than the average, if you emit less than the average, you're going to make money every year. And if you emit more than average, it's going to cost you. And the knowledge that this is gradually increasing will let you plan. You're not going to get rid of your car today, but the next car you buy will be a lot more efficient. I don't know if you remember when we had $4 a gallon gas in New Jersey a few years ago. Everybody was switching to hybrids and driving less, but that varies. So if there was a policy that gradually had an increase in carbon tax, that would really help to solve it. And the only way to get that passed is to have people in the legislature who are not beholden to fossil fuel interests.
Awesome, thank you. All right, couple more questions. Let's see. Which causes more climate change, cars or industrial animal farming for meat?
If cows were a country, they would be the third largest emitter around in the world after China and the United States. So that's a huge amount of there's a lot of energy used to make their feed and to transport them, but also they emit methane out of both ends, and that's a very strong greenhouse gas, much stronger than CO2. And so if you just switched from cows, even if don't become a vegetarian, if you eat chicken or pork, that emits a lot less CO2 than beef does. And it doesn't have to be all or none. You could just eat less than you do in the past. Cars are a huge emitter, and the United States is sort of addicted to cars. But I bought a Tesla almost 2 years ago, and we drove it out to Colorado last summer and spent there summer there and drove it back. And at home, I charge it for my solar panels, and so that's a very good a way to reduce your emissions. Of course, you have to be able to afford it. The price is coming down and down. There are more and more cheaper electric cars. New Jersey has a very far-sighted program to distribute lots of charging stations and to give, if you buy a Tesla right now, a Model 3 or a Model Y, New Jersey will give you $5,000 to help pay for it. So there are incentives, and the federal government will give you an incentive to buy a different brand. Tesla has run out of their federal incentives, but other ones, they'll give you incentives. And the price is coming down. So next time you can think about that, getting a hybrid or an electric car will help solve the problem. But trucks do a lot. Tesla's building a Tesla truck. It'll drive itself. And Amazon has contracted with Rivian, a new company, to build. You've seen those gray trucks that are everybody's neighborhood delivering stuff. They're all going to be electric in a year or two. And so that's going to help solve the problem too.
All right, thank you. That was great. Let's see. So moving from cars, do you have anything to say about flying? Another thing Americans love to do.
That's my biggest sin. At least it hasn't been for the last 6 months, but that's my biggest sin in terms of CO2 emissions. The amount of energy in diesel and gasoline is so much that you can actually carry the fuel with you and fly 18 hours from New York to Singapore. And it's amazing. And there's no way to replace that with solar panels or with anything else. Nobody's figured out how to do that. So that's one use of fossil fuels that's really hard to replace. So with Zoom, we don't have to go to meetings as much. I go to conferences, and it really stimulates me and helps my research, and it allows me to talk to different people and plan new projects. And so my travel has really helped me to figure out what the problem is and do more work on it. But at the same time, it emits CO2. The American Geophysical Union is planning a meeting this fall online, and the European Geoscience Union had one this spring. And the European one just didn't work the same. You couldn't talk to people in the hall or stand, look at a poster and talk to people or go have a dinner with somebody. So some travel, I think, for some reason, for some purposes, really is important. Our emissions don't have to be zero. They just have to be much lower. And so I think flying emits like 1 or 2% of the total amount of CO2. And so that's something that's one of the hardest things to deal with. But it's much easier if you drive somewhere and you fly somewhere, say you drive a gasoline car, your emissions are about the same per mile. It's just that flying gets you there much faster and you go much farther, and so the total emissions are larger. So I was a lead author of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, fifth assessment, the most recent IPCC report. And I calculated what my emissions were from flying to the different meetings that we had to write the report. And it was much, much more than my annual emissions from everything else I do. So I guess I feel a little guilty, but I feel like what we did, which was at the request of governments of the world, informing them about what the causes of climate change are and what the impacts of different ways to address it are, was important too. So it's complicated.
Necessary evil on that. So let's see, I think we've got 2 or 3 more questions. Someone, Dana is asking, you list recycling as something we can do, but is there really?
Your voice is really distorted. It's hard to understand what you're saying.
Sorry, Sarah, I'll
Using
repeat
and
the
reusing.
question. So the question, Dr. Robock, is you list recycling as something we can do, but is there really a future in recycling? Maybe we need to work on refusing and reusing.
I agree. I'm not an expert on recycling. If some recycling is like for aluminum, as I understand it, is a pretty good thing to do, but for other things like plastics, it's harder to do, and it's much better not to use stuff in the first place. That's right.
Okay, and one of these questions was actually mine. I just asked, what is your response to those skeptics who claim that climate change and global warming is just a part of the cyclical events of the Earth?
So first of all, I don't like to use the word skeptic, because I'm a skeptic. Every good scientist is a skeptic. You always have to ask questions. I call them global warming deniers, not skeptics. And climate change is caused by many things. And whatever changes the amount of energy coming into the Earth or going out changes the amount of energy here and causes climate change. Over hundreds of thousands of years, we have ice ages, and we understand what causes that, and they are cyclical because the Earth's orbit goes from circular to elliptical, the tilt of the axis goes back and forth, and it wobbles, and we can calculate how that changes the amount of energy reaching the northern hemisphere land, and we can simulate the climate changes based on the changing cyclical amount of energy that comes in, and so we understand that pretty well. Those changes are very, very slow. So it's been 10,000 years in the current interglacial, and it's without any impact from humans, it would be gradually, slowly cooling. And then, so that's part of this much longer cycle. And so, yes, it turns out that there are many things that cause climate change, and we happen to be the strongest thing right now. There's not going to be another ice age until humans stop emitting CO2.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robock, and we really, really appreciate your being here tonight. That was amazing, and we all appreciate your attendance for our tiny little town of Asbury Park.
Well, it's tiny, but it's got the stone pony, so.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, I think that was all the questions we had. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. Irina, can you hear me okay?
You're good.
Okay. Thank you again, Dr. Robock. And we will go from one of the topics you mentioned, solar panels and solar energy. And we will be talking to or hearing from Ty from Seabright Solar. Ty has been with the company since 2011 and has been working in the solar industry since 2006, getting a start in Oregon. So Ty, take it away.
Thanks, guys. What a strange world that we're in meeting under these circumstances, but looks like we're all doing the best we can. Doctor, I really appreciate following you up. This is a good segue from your presentation to mine. This is very helpful. A lot of things that you said are just hit right on point, and I think everyone should pay real close attention to a lot of that stuff. So let me share with you about what I do and what Seabright Solar does, and then we can talk a little bit about sustainability and how solar can really impact the world that we live in. So that's real neat. So as you mentioned, I started with Seabright Solar back in 2011. I moved here from Oregon, where I got my start in the solar industry. And I moved here to New Jersey because of how lucrative the incentives are here. So incentives could be another word for subsidies, but I call it money back in my pocket for not having to spend that money on solar. So it's a pretty unique situation. Seabright Solar has been in business for 17 years. We're under a private owner. We're local. We're in Ocean Township. We started in Seabright all those years ago, but now we're in Ocean. We're on Cindy Lane behind the Ray Catano dealership. I have a lot of jobs in Asbury Park, so I appreciate that too. We do all of our own work. We're sales, design, build, install. Some sales groups will just go out there and sell your job, give it to somebody else to install it. You really sacrifice on quality with not having the same workers for each job. So we take that hometown approach with each of our jobs. And I appreciate that. It's really good with working with these guys. I've been there 10 years. Most of the office guys have been there a little bit longer than me too. So that's a really nice place to work. Solar is very, very sustainable. Although it might be a little bit expensive up front, it has the extreme environmental impacts, only that the solar panel has to be plugged in for 3 years before it offsets its original power to make that. So in terms of the sustainability, it's wonderful for the environment. You're producing all your clean energy on site with the incentives that are available. You can get it with financing. You can use your own capital available. There's even leasing available. All the options for solar are better than not doing it. That's the key. That not doing solar is the most expensive way to buy your electricity. With all the subsidies and incentives, I'll just say it again, the cheapest way to get your current electricity is definitely with solar. Now, provided you have the roof space available or not giant trees, these sort of things. A large part of our power grid comes still directly from coal. A large part comes still directly from nuclear. When we get home and we turn all the lights on, that peak demand, that comes from natural gas. So there's wind and solar, and those do play a big part of our grid, but nowhere near the size of that fossil fuels still play. So I feel really proud that I get to be part of an industry that it saves the world. I work one rooftop at a time, and each person that I help to get to go solar, I really like my job, and I really like who I get to work with, because each person that goes solar, they're excited. They've been waiting their whole lives. They finally get to do it. And it's nice to be part of that. It's nice to be part of that transition. So, how we do solar, how do you do it? So you got a house and you got a big electric bill, and you call us up. And the first thing that we're going to want to do is know how much electricity that you're using. The utility companies here in New Jersey, JCP&L, PSE&G, Atlantic City down south, they're going to regulate how much solar that we can put on your roof by how much your usage is. So we look at your electric bill, we determine how much power you need, we compare that to the available roof space, and then we can show you how to do it. Whether it's 10 panels or 20 panels or 24, 30 panels or 100. Our goal is to offset your electric bill as much as possible, given the amount of roof space that you have. We can even put them on the ground. There's lots of different ways to do it. We build carports. There's all sorts of ways to do it. Now, let's say you've made the plunge to do it and you finally decided to get it. Well, big reasons for doing it, of course, not just the environmental, but are the financial. Right now in New Jersey, there's a 26% federal tax credit. That's a big chunk of change that comes back to you the first year after install if you buy the panels. Now, it's not a rebate, it's not a deduction, it's not a write-off. It goes against the taxes that you've already paid. And so if we're working and we're paying taxes, then we get a credit against that, and you get that money back. I finally got to go solar last year. And this year on my taxes, when I got them early, I filed them early because I wanted my incentive back. I got $12,000 back as a tax credit. It's a really, really nice way to do it. And as the doctor mentioned before, there's also a state incentive. When he signed up, they were called SRECs, SRECs. Now they're called TRECs, TREC. It's an incentive that is paid based on production. So every time your solar meter clicks 1,000 kilowatt hours, you get a certificate. You get one certificate. And the certificate is sold like a stock on a market or an exchange that we set up for you. It's very simple. The doctor's been doing it for over a decade. I just got my solar panels. I've been doing it for just now about a year. So when you couple the incentives, the federal tax credit, the nice incentive from the state, in addition to now not paying the utility company, this can create a very, very nice economic return that will oftentimes beat out other types of investments. Now, that's the money side. Environmentally, it's amazing. You produce your own power on site. You're no longer being subject to supply and delivery charges. It's all from your roof. It's just a beautiful way to do it. What's happened real big the last 18 months is the adoption of storage, basically batteries for solar panels. You know, I've been doing this here for 10 years, and for the first 8, we didn't sell a single one. And in the last year, we're selling a lot of them. The Tesla Powerwall has become real popular on the market, so much so that I've got mine plugged in and I'm able to use my battery right now instead of the grid. So right now I've islanded myself. I'm using just my solar panel that powered my battery all day long. It's a pretty unique way to go. I wasn't out of any power when the power went out recently. It clicks right over. It's got an automatic transfer switch. And so in terms of, sustainability and viability, and I went through Sandy. That was 9 days without power. And now I have a solar and battery and I'm completely sustainable. It's a really nice way to go. The warranty and the equipment's top notch as well. I spoke a little bit about the incentives. These are often a double-digit return. The payback is usually between 8 to 12 years. What I mean by payback is the amount of money that I save versus what it actually cost me. Usually about 8 years, all that money is back. It's a full recoup of your money. Whereas not a lot of other things that I can buy, whether it's a dishwasher, a bicycle, or nothing really else pays for itself. Solar does savings on the electric bill. And as the doctor was mentioning earlier, you get sent the money for the incentives, the state incentive on one hand, the energy savings on the other. It's thousands of dollars a year for the people that own solar. It's a really, really good way to go. I want to touch on one thing that the doctor mentioned because it is real, it is here, and there is hope. But what's most importantly about before you go with solar is to do some efficiency upgrades on your home. You could spend $30,000 on a solar system, but maybe if you put $1,000 into efficiency upgrades on your home, maybe you only need to spend $25,000 on solar panels because there's a lot of air leaks, maybe some insulation in the attic. The old adage of keep the air in the tires. These are things that really, really help, especially over time. And really, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about over time. Right now our culture is to buy electricity from the grid and don't worry about it. Admittedly, I got gas on the way home today and I gave the attendant my card. I didn't even look what the price per gallon was. I know I needed gas. I gave him my card and that was it. That's sort of how we are with electricity too. We're so programmed to buy it that there's no other alternative. And now there is. And now there's another alternative. And again, as I mentioned, this other alternative is a less expensive, more sustainable way to go. And that's really what I want to bring is sustainability and to save you some money. It's a really nice way to save some money and be sustainable. So what's also really cool about these cars that are coming out is that electric cars, you charge them from your house. Now we say we charge them from the solar panels, but really we just charge them from the house, which is solar panels feed the breaker feeds the car. Soon, probably within about 18 months, these electric cars will have the ability to bi-directionally charge. So when you get home at night and maybe you charge your car from the superchargers, you'll be able to then backfeed that power from your car into your home. The hardware is already available in the Tesla cars. They're going to come out with the software available real soon. And when that happens, there'll be a giant push for more solar and for more electric cars. And that's going to be a nice transition to go. So I've really given my best pitch at this. I have solar on my home. I really hope all you guys get it too. My name is Ty with Seabright Solar. I'll answer any questions that you guys have. So
Thank you, Ty. And can you guys hear me okay? All right, perfect. So we'll start off with some questions from people. What is the lifespan of a solar panel?
Well, the useful warranty is 25 years. This new technology hasn't been around long enough to know how long they're going to last. They're telling us the useful life will be 40 years. We are a SunPower dealer. SunPower makes very high efficient solar panels. They work very well in marine environments like that we have here. So the useful life, 35, 40 years, full system warranty for 25 years.
All right. What about the concern about how much metal is needed for electric cars and solar panels?
So maybe I will assume not so much the metal, but maybe the components for the batteries. The solar panels are aluminum, and aluminum is one of the most heavily recycled components that we have. Soda cans, they're almost all recycled. We don't do too much more aluminum mining because it's so well recycled. Cars, unfortunately, for safety, they've actually gotten lighter. So they're not using big, expensive metals like they used to. Now, battery technology is different because they use a lot of stuff in the batteries. They have a lot of rare earth minerals in the batteries. They used to be lead acid batteries, which were a lot more harmful to the environment. Now they're lithium ion batteries. So they have less restrictions about charging, easier to discharge, not so much concern.
All right. And then again, the batteries. So how much would a battery cost you?
Well, they are not cheap. You get a federal tax credit. They are available with the federal tax credit. It's about $8,000 net cost, which means about $11,000 up front. I put in one battery at my house. I really wish I would have done two. One's like the minimum. If you go to a tool that will size out how many batteries you need, they will often say you need many, but that's it. That gets into need versus want, emergency versus luxury in an outage. If the power's out, do I need to be running my air conditioner? I don't personally, but someone maybe who's older with some health conditions, they want to have that as a level of safety versus just luxury. And so these are the things that we afford. It might be expensive, but when I went through Sandy and I was out of power for 9 days, that's too much. That's too expensive. So these are very, very, very affordable when you consider those.
Yes. And then are the batteries mobile?
I mean, we bring them to site, but they are permanently installed, so they're not mobile.
Okay. And then I think the last question right now is, do you have experience with condo buildings, putting solar on condos or apartments?
Yeah. So we have a lot of experience in virtually all types of installations. The downside about condos is sometimes the homeowner won't own the roof. The condo association will own the roof. And then it makes it difficult for the individual to do it without having to have the entire board adoption. And sometimes with bylaws and rules, that can be a difficult swing. But sometimes if there's a communal area for a condo, that can be a great idea for a carport. And right now with a condo, if you want to charge your electric car, maybe you got to run your extension cord out your front door. Maybe it seems kind of long. But if we build a carport, we can put the electric car charging stations on the pylons, and then more people are able to own electric cars, which makes it more adoptable.
Could I just say one thing also? During the day, if the grid's down, you can still get power from your solar panels if you have an inverter like a Sunny Boy inverter that gives you power directly into your house. Yes, you can.
So current technology, the solar is called grid-tied interactive. If the grid is out, the solar panels won't produce unless we have a place to backfeed the power, which is a battery. So
no. You can switch it off and get 110 right into your house. I have it at my house from a Sunny Boy inverter. So during the daytime, you can get power from your solar panels. You only need the batteries at night.
That's actually not what I'm experiencing or that I recommend, but you and I can talk about that later. No problem.
Okay.
No problem. Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
There is one more question, sorry. What is this switch called?
Maybe I would assume that's the automatic, the transfer switch. When the power goes out, solar panels turn off, and then at the same time, the battery will click on. And for example, my clock radio, my light on my microwave won't need to be reset because the power just stays on automatically. That's called an automatic transfer switch. And it's built in to the Tesla Powerwall. It's built into the battery.
I'm sorry, Ty, the question was, what is the switch called that Dr. Robock mentioned? I believe he called it a Sunny Boy switch.
Sunny Boy is a brand of inverter. And for a couple of years, they had an outlet that you could plug into for a small little outlet to get 1,000 watts of power while the power was out. Now that little outlet was meant for 1,000 watts of electricity. It wasn't meant to backfeed the grid. I don't know the specifics of the doctor's system, so I certainly don't want to call into question what it is. Just from my experience and what I've done, there's traditionally no power to the home while the grid's out without, of course, a generator or without batteries.
No, that's right. It's a Sunny Boy inverter, and it gives you 1,000 or 1,500 watts, and it's enough to run your refrigerator. It's enough to charge your devices. It's not enough to run your whole house. But yes, it's an inverter. It converts the power from the solar panels into AC power.
And doctor, what's unique is that we don't. The new inverters are actually built into the solar panels these days. The solar panels produce DC power. The inverter is on the solar panel itself, and so we're coming off the panel AC power into the main service panel.
Yeah, that next time I get them in 25 years, that's what I'll get.
Is there an option to share my screen?
Yeah, at the bottom
Yes,
there's
of
a green
course.
thing. Share your screen.
Oh, there we go. Okay, look at this. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so this is, oh, there we go. Can everyone see that? Look at this. This is, sorry, move this window. This is my system. I put it in last year. I'm very, very happy with it. I have 24 solar panels. I live in Neptune. This is a barn that we did just outside of Hamilton. They have all the power from the barn goes directly to the house through this long trench right here. We did a giant carport up in Franklin Lakes. These are really neat because you can put the charging pylons for your cars, or you can put the charging stations on the pylons. And if you notice, we didn't lose any parking spots with this one. It's really neat. The batteries, this is my battery. It only sticks off the wall 6 inches. It's 30 inches by 40 inches, and it sticks off the wall 6 inches. This is what they look like if you stack 2 in front of one another. But it's a very intuitive setup when even just a couple years ago, it wasn't like this. And so battery technology has dropped in price, increased in power, and in my opinion, a lot more affordable than really loud generators that constantly need servicing or fuel or just noise. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, Ty. Thank you so much. That was very informative. And again, if anyone has any questions, you can contact Ty. We'll provide his contact information at the end also. And Sarah, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Thank you, Ty, so much for letting us know all about solar and how we can get on board with that. Next, we are going to have Kevin. He is a certified healing food specialist. I personally met with him before, and we've talked about food and everything great. He is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to understanding food and how to source food locally from New Jersey farmers especially, and just cultivating a sustainable lifestyle overall. So Kevin, if you will please jump on here and share all of your wonderful information.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Everything coming through? All right. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a long time waiting. I was so eager to do that. The event. Is Sarah still talking? Oh. I've been so eager to do this. Ideally, would have been in person, but yeah. So as she said, Sarah said, I'm into getting people connected to local food sources in the area. Mostly farm fresh options, also some great markets or sort of mom and pop groceries and smaller shops in the area that are pulling more and more from the region to supply their food and their customers. So I'm going to get into a few ways that are available to us in the area here. I'm based in Neptune City, and over the past 10 plus years, I've been sourcing directly from farms in every place I've lived along the way, Jersey City, out in outside of Philly, and then back here to the shore. And everywhere I go, I'm able to locate great options that fit what I'm looking for in terms of quality, in terms of nutrient density, and ideally the more traditional ways of creating food and less of the sort of industrialized options. So we consider one great option around here is joining up with a buying club, and what that is an organization that works as a go-between between really traditional farmers that have really kept it simple and don't use a lot of computers or technology on the farm, and then connecting them with consumers that can order their food online on a regular basis, either weekly or bi-weekly, for pickup or for home delivery to come right to the house. And that's been what we've seen in the last few months, obviously, is a huge surge in the interest in home delivered food. So we've been more than happy to step up our efforts, and the farms have been edging up production to meet the new needs, and still staying with their traditional practices and not sacrificing quality to be able to do that. And that's what we love about smaller farms that perhaps aren't even big enough to qualify for and justify an organic certification. We think of them as kind of beyond organic, and they meet the standards that are put forth by a foundation that I work with, called the Weston A. Price Foundation, and that's at westonaprice.org. If you'd like to see more information on our philosophy towards food creation and getting it around to people, as well as all the wonderful studies of Dr. Price, who traveled the world back many decades ago to study the indigenous cultures of the world, see how they were eating and living, and contrasting that to what was beginning to be the kind of the industrial era in the 20s and 30s, and how that changed the food supply drastically, and what were the ramifications of some of our modern creations in the food world. So Weston Price Foundation is aimed at getting us back to traditional ways in terms of how we eat, how we source, and how we do our self-care and even our mental state. Weston Price Foundation is a nonprofit organization that seeks to disseminate the research of nutrition pioneer Dr. Weston Price, who studies isolated the non-industrialized peoples of the world and established the parameters for human health and determined their optimum characteristics of their diets and how they lived. So it's fascinating research if you want to dive into that ever. It's what really woke me up to pay more attention to how I was what I was eating, and then where it was coming from, how that was created, and the wonderful benefits you start to get when you get more local. Along the way, just going through kind of my timeline, and back in like about 2010, we were starting to take on an actual delivery service for one of the traditional farmers that was delivering to the area. So I started moved beyond a customer at that point and became kind of getting my boots on the ground with the food movement. And along the way, we got certified as healing food specialists and took on more work with Weston A. Price Foundation. We attended some great marches and activist events along the way, and some great conferences to really bolster our knowledge as we went on the journey. And when I say we, it's Jessica and her mom, Roberta, who we all eventually designed a course called the Vibrant Health Series that was done at Bergen Community. So, and that was allowing us to finally get some of this great knowledge out to folks and get them started with local food sourcing. In 2013, I was fortunate to give a TEDx talk on the human microbiome. And I feel that really does tie in with these local farms, because what we're looking to do is get probiotic-rich foods as directly as we can without any real intervention, any irradiation, pasteurization, things like that actually then take away all those living components that we're really going for. So as we learned more about probiotics and the benefits of enriching your gut health with those traditional foods, it became really apparent that it was harder and harder to find those in any kind of a market, or at least of any real potency. So, got off probiotic pills and moved into really getting directly from the food, which is far more beneficial. So the TEDx talk is called Making Friends with Your Microbes. It's up there from TEDx Jersey City in 2013. Attended some great seminars on rewilding as well along the way, which is a great mindset to sort of deal with our modern Babylon society and the strains it can put on you, and kind of tapping into your deeper human self. So it worked really nicely with all the nutrition information based on indigenous cultures. Now you can start to also, with the rewilding world, adopt a mindset around why you're, going to these lengths to create your own mouthwash out of sea salt and essential oils, and, buying a locally made deodorant, and, just supporting all the little village that is really around you. I think of the supporters of this food system as kind of a sleeping giant right now, because what happened was when the big systems around us a few months back began to really teeter, food supplies looked a little dicey, every kind of supply really. Our farmers stepped it up, and we had an uninterrupted great supply of food, and they're still enjoying a real surge of business as more and more people were forced to look into different kinds of food options, and not even really wanted to leave the house to get them. So this, I also would consider this sort of an open call for more drivers, more site hosts, anybody who wants to really get involved with an amazing local food system that's grown from real people, no corporations, over a few decades now, getting better and better and more gently technologically advanced, being able to order online. Which is wonderful. I think that it's really handy to be able to order your food, see it kind of all laid out, see where you're at budget-wise, and make decisions very easily on what to add in, what to take away. You get a good sense versus, the olden days of wandering around the aisles, which may be fading into the distant past soon, but, at least compared to the old days of wandering the aisles with your list and comparing labels, I think it really, ordering directly from farms has really so many benefits. If we want to tie in sustainability with that piece, ordering directly really does cut down on food waste. It cuts down on that need to overproduce and sort of fill your farm stand with lots and lots of produce that at the end of the day you're going to pack up, and half of it gets tossed. A lot of it maybe they can compost and things, but there certainly is a lot of food waste involved with trying to fluff up a marketplace scene, of whether it's an outdoor farmers market or an indoor brick and mortar kind of market. That's, we've noticed over the past months how the shelves looking so bare is a very ominous feeling. So it's clear that markets really like to have this sense of abundance, and it takes a lot of overproduction to make that happen, really. And having worked in the field in various ways, being behind juice bars and working in markets that were, doing their best to do the right things, they can still fall short in a lot of ways, and food waste is one. So this direct ordering, allowing farmers to prepare the order over the few days after you place your order till when it's delivered, is great, because they don't need to waste anything. They know what they're up against and deliver exactly what you need and only what you need without all the frills. I find myself eating every last crumb of this food, just appreciating how, having a face behind the food, knowing the farmers, calling them up, having chats with them and asking them about any practices that you may have concern about. And they're very honest, and they love to talk about what they do, what they're so good at doing. I really think farmers are some of the most amazing and resilient people out there. And I think it's because of their contact with the earth and, wildlife, the environment. It's a win-win for everybody when you can get direct. It's a family to family feeding operation in a sense, and sourcing operation. It really simplifies the food chain, so farmers can really get a fair price. They get more out of every food dollar that you give them. In the major food systems, farmers only get maybe 10 to 20% of that food dollar. So 20 cents goes to the farmer, 80 cents goes to designers, marketers, CEOs, trucks, trains, planes, automobiles, the whole deal. So it really is a beautifully elegant system to just be able to order and receive with a total of one truck between you. And some people even go directly to the farms. There's great farms here in Jersey. A lot of the staples that I go for are coming from the Lancaster area farm belt in Pennsylvania. So still within 200, 300 miles, and that's the local food shed. And just because Pennsylvania is so close and it's such a rich farmland, I grew up out there and enjoyed the company of all the Amish and the Mennonites as I grew up, and loved to watch them work. So Consumers then are benefiting from like highest quality food, so fresh, and it's a reasonable price. It's the price that food really deserves to, I think, be purchased at versus artificial inflation of price due to basically the economies of scale and just our system of bringing in produce and things that we can grow within 100 miles and bringing that stuff in from South America and places around the globe. It always makes my head scratch how far food moves around when it can be achieved locally. Reduces a lot of fuel for that very reason, moving this stuff around so much. Reduces a lot of unnecessary packaging and waste in that regard as well. The food can just come in a simple glass container or simple packaging without all the frills. It decentralizes the food system and starts to get money flowing back in our communities and creating microeconomies. I think that's going to be an important thing to look at as the landscapes are shifting right now, economically, politically. It just felt good this whole time to know I have a food supply, and I go and fetch my own spring water, and I'm resourceful, and I can help you become very resourceful as well. If you want to get in touch, and I can send you the resource list of all the farms and all the great little hidden gems around here. So I can start wrapping up if we're getting at like a 13-ish minute mark. Does anybody want to jump in with questions, or I can continue with some parting thoughts?
We do have a couple questions from Derek. He's asking, how much do you think people in the U.S.'s mental and physical health are connected to what they eat?
Well, so as a healing food specialist, I would say like major connections. What we learned about when learning about the microbiome is just how many neurons are going on in our gut. And it's second only to the neurons up in this portion of the brain. And I personally have come to see the brain as almost a jellyfish. Up here is the logical parts and the reasoning, and then down through the vagus nerve and all the branches of the nervous system into the gut. That is like a whole nother brain of its own, or at least the lower half of the brain, something that we don't really recognize as the brain. But definitely healing the gut can really drastically and pretty quickly reduce a lot of these disorders. So I'm happy to send you more info on that. I think there's also a mentality around, like a mindset around that we're going to have to definitely all be aware of as well. And that's why I like the rewilding. It helps me feel human again, and it helps me tap into, I think, instincts and even abilities or even healing capabilities that were innate otherwise and left kind of dormant. So it's cool to wake up to all this stuff, and happy to help you on your journey.
All right. Let's see. We wanted to know, what is a food shed?
Food shed is a term that means like a watershed, being like how far out does water trickle down to this common river, and that is the Delaware River watershed, let's say, from where all that. So it's almost the reverse with food. The food shed is how far that locally produced food can make it without becoming more of a commodity food, more of an edible bargaining chip for larger corporations that are mostly disconnected from how the food is made and the people making it. So.
And then another definition, what do you mean by rewilding?
So rewilding was coined by people like Arthur Haynes and Daniel Vitalis, so I really recommend following. They've got some great podcasts called Rewild Yourself. Arthur Haynes is like ancestral wisdom expert and mentored Daniel Vitalis into developing this sort of field of rewilding, which is about tapping into your more instinctual natures, recognizing human domestication and all the sort of detrimental qualities associated with home-based life and not the way our indigenous cultures and the more natural people of the world live at one with their environment. So it hints at the world of sort of permaculture, where we're really working with the land as we create food, and just how we think about and tread upon the earth around us. So it was really woven in nicely with all the microbiome studies and the indigenous culture studies. It just gave a almost not a religion, but a mentality, a focus around all of this knowledge that I'm just constantly immersing myself in.
All right, wonderful. And then let's see. I don't think you answered this one yet. What farms can we order from near Asbury?
So that's something I'll get into just sort of more privately, but what we do, being a Weston A. Price Foundation chapter leader, I keep a running list, and I'm always looking for more recommendations from people along the way to add in. That's how we build these. So I can forward you the PDF that has all the ones that I'm aware of thus far and always exploring. Basically what you do is you sign up with the farm directly. Nowadays, these farms have somebody kind of working a website for them, or they're doing it themselves in some cases. And you become, a member, or at least set up an account and begin ordering. Sometimes, every farm, that's why I like to talk to people about this stuff, because each farm kind of has its ins and outs. Sometimes there is a membership fee, sometimes it's free. Sometimes you need a referral. Sometimes, we try to keep things secure and keep the farmers safe and insulated from the big bad world out there. So that's something I'm happy to email you, like a whole list of websites instead of just one. But for anybody even looking ahead and wider than just the area, westonaprice.org, WESTONAPRISE.org, westonaprice.org is, you can click find a chapter leader, and that's like finding somebody like me in wherever you're traveling. And we have chapter leaders plopped all over the country and all over the world, growing and growing to keep running lists of great farms and cool resources for you to, do your organic living journey. So yeah, I'd be happy to. I just don't want to mention too much publicly. We keep those lists. They're like very sacred. So.
All right, I think we got all the questions answered and everything done on there. Kevin, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
This was wonderful.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you. Thank you to all of our speakers. And I'll be going over a couple more real quick, the two gentlemen who were not able to be with us this evening. I'm going to jump on here. Let's see. All right. All right. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So Jay Sims, he's the Assistant District Recycling Coordinator with the Monmouth County Solid Waste and Recycling Office. I know a couple of you had mentioned, as our speakers even, that you were excited about hearing from him. Unfortunately, he was not able to be with us this evening. I just threw this together, though, to give him a little shout out, because he does some really great work in the area. This, if you can see it, he has the backyard composting workshop that he does. I've added the dates on there. The next ones will be in October and then in November. And we'll share these links with you and all of the contact information from all the speakers tonight, including that bottom link. I know you can't click on it, but the Monmouth County Recycling Guide. So for anyone who does have questions about what you can, what you can't recycle, what county recycles what, it is different. I know I'm personally in Ocean Grove, in Neptune, and then that's actually different from Monmouth, which in Asbury Park. So it's different, which I didn't know for the longest time. So it is really important to know what you can and cannot recycle, and know what you can and cannot compost. It'll help when you take your stuff to Kula Farms, and it will help if you want to just have your own backyard recycling as well. So, and I've also reached out to Jay, so if you guys do have any questions for him, you can send those over his way and he'll get back to you. And then our last speaker who wasn't able to be with us was Mike. He's our Jersey Shore chapter chair for Surfrider. If you guys are not familiar with Surfrider, they do a lot of ocean and coastal based programs and campaigns. Some of their big ones are going to be that they work in plastic pollution, ocean protection, beach access, clean water, and coastal preservation. I've added their upcoming beach cleanups. They do a lot of those. And even during COVID times right now, they're asking people to do solo beach cleans. I've personally done a couple myself. You can go to their site and register. This helps so you can categorize what you found, and this goes into national databases so they can kind of keep track of what's most polluting our areas and our beaches and shores. His contact information, again, is here, along with their Instagram handle that you can follow them. So that way, if you want to join virtually for any of their upcoming meetings or just kind of find out what they're doing, what they're working on. They're also big with legislature and policy. So that's important, again, to get involved so we have a say in what goes on in our area. And other than that, I think that is everything for the evening. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Thank you again to all of our speakers. I know that this was hard to get all together, that we weren't able to be in person and this was postponed for a while, but I'm very grateful that you guys were able to make the time and you joined. And we are recording this, so we are going to post on the city website so it can be accessed at a later time for more people, so if anyone was not able to get to it. And as I said, and as Irina mentioned, we'll be getting everyone, all of the speakers, information and contact information in case you think of questions later, and the link so you can watch this video at a later time. Irina, do you have anything else to add?
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I actually just wanted to add and let everyone know that the City Council has recently passed a proposal for a community renewable energy aggregation program for the city of Asbury Park. And basically what that is a bulk buying of energy for the residents of the city of Asbury Park. So it's very important that everybody attends city council meetings, support your local politicians who support these actions, and very important to vote, as Dr. Robock mentioned earlier. I also wanted to state that the city also has electric vehicle charging stations. The first ones are on Madison Avenue. So please spread the word and remember that when you're buying your next vehicle, so that we can get more stations. And finally, we are working on making the application for solar panel installations more expedited and easier for residents. So that will also help, go along with Ty's presentation and anyone who's interested in adding solar to their residences. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending and all the speakers. This was really awesome. And we'll try and get this video and the recording, including all of the slides, up on APTV later this week. So if you missed anything, you can check back with that. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.